Okay, so we're changing our format slightly. We're going to go over the biggest headline articles of the week. And for this week, we're going to be talking about Bay Area jobs. Jobs, and lots of more jobs are coming and continue to come in the Bay Area. And one of the regions gets the most. We're going to talk about California exodus is over. Why isn't this getting reported that much? I wonder. We'll talk about that too. Will homes ever be affordable again? What does that mean? Build to rent. This concept has been going on in lots of other states for a long time now, but it's coming to the Bay Area. And did you know you can buy an island, not in Hawaii, not in Florida, not in the Caribbean, but in the Bay Area for $25 million? And last but not least, where are the most EVs in the country? And if you have any questions about the Bay Area real estate market, or if you have any questions about specific areas, leave it in the comments below. I will likely go over it either for this video or the next video, live or in the future, and address that accordingly. But let's talk about the news of the week. So, first and foremost, Bay Area adds jobs in November, powered by big gains in the South Bay. So, a lot of things aren't typically as strong or reported. Like, we all see, or we all still have in our minds that companies are either cutting or there's attrition. But the fact is, there are a lot of markets and a lot of companies that continue to hire and bring on more people. So take a look at some of these numbers. Employment gains in the Bay Area suggest that the region has been able to ward off at least some of the effects of relentless layoffs in the tech industry that began at the start of 2022 and that worsened in 2023. The Bay Area added 5,800 jobs in November. The number of gains means the region gained employment over the two most recent months, ending 3 straight months of job losses in July, August, and September. All of the numbers were adjusted seasonally. The South Bay, for the entire Bay Area, added 3,800 jobs in November. Now, the 4 North Bay regions of Marin County, Sonoma County, Solano County, and Napa County also posted job gains in November. There are some areas though that did lose jobs. San Francisco, San Mateo region, interesting enough, lost 100 jobs in November. Most of it is mainly because of San Francisco. There's a lot of negative press, but quite frankly, it is real in terms of why people would consider the going into San Francisco office spaces. Now, most of the time, people are looking at working maybe somewhere else, but still living in San Francisco. But to have an office space in San Francisco is a completely different matter altogether. California, altogether as a state, didn't gain too many. They gained a relatively small amount, 9,300 jobs in November, which means the Bay Area accounted for most of the job gains in the entire state. The Bay Area accounted for 62% of all jobs that California added in November. Statewide unemployment rate worsened and rose to 4.9% in November, up from 4.8% in October. The tech industry was among the weakest major industry sectors in the Bay Area in November, according. They did cut 1,500 jobs, but they still added more jobs than was cut. So it gives you an idea, like, there are still certain companies that have been in distress, but still as a net, there's been more jobs added than there have been cuts. And the question is, we'll see, especially as December is over and we are into January, whether there are going to be more employment gains, especially if you take a look at the stocks of many companies and NASDAQ in itself. A lot of companies have already came up from the bottom. Most of them already had bottomed, especially if you're a higher growth a higher growth tech company. I've seen a lot of those bleeding stop, and they are hiring again. So for you that are looking at job changes, this is a good opportunity to get into a new place. For those that have been kind of waiting and hoping for a better year, hopefully we will continue to have a better year, especially in the tech sector. But some of their signs are already playing out. You saw interest rates have dropped significantly over the last 2 months. You see stocks completely change drastically, hitting all new record highs. You see NASDAQ end of the year at a 45% increase. So it will be interesting to see, but it seems like things are getting brighter, especially in the Bay Area tech job market. Now, the next question that a lot of people have is about this whole idea of being exodus in California. Like, is it, the question was always, yes, when things were peak, as in people had peak jobs, peak flexibility, were people able to live anywhere they want. And there was a time that that was the case. And why not? If you can keep the Bay Area money and you didn't have much roots in the Bay Area, like you didn't have much close friends, family, or anything like that, and you didn't mind the weather changes, then those people are the ones that left. Now, as jobs got a lot tighter, a lot more people have decided to come back and settle down, or they also tested some of those other markets. They thought it was good because of all the marketing press for it, but they realized, look, it wasn't that special, so I'm going to head back. In the last 2 months or so, I've helped at least 2-3 clients buy a place that they already were planning to buy out of the region. And I'm like, wait a second. Before you really relocate hundreds, if not thousands of miles away, can you consider these areas? And they're like, oh, wow, we could consider these areas. And then they did, and then they ended up buying, and they were successful. So a lot of people, it's very sensationalized that, yes, I can go to San Diego, or I can go to Florida, or I can go to Texas. And then once they really peel the onion and see, like, what are the options really there today, and what are their job prospects, and how does it deal with like family and friends, then a lot of things change pretty quickly. So let's take a look at some of these numbers, right? For four Bay Area counties, Alameda, San Francisco, Santa Clara, and San Mateo grew in population between 2022 and 2023 in July after a period of population decline during the height of the pandemic. These are top 5 counties of terms of population gained by number from 2020 to 2023, despite their early pandemic losses. The other areas that have grown is Sacramento and San Diego. So Sacramento has grown primarily because of the Bay. Some people have left the Bay to go to Sac. It's about an hour and a half, 2 hours from the Bay Area. So some people have elected to do that, especially if they had some flexibility at work, if they still want to be within range of their friends and family that are still here. And then San Diego was certainly always popular. But then again, San Diego has always been able to keep growing. It also is because they had more, quite frankly, they have a decent amount of land still there. So they have a lot of room to continue to expand and to house people. And so because housing isn't so bad there, they have a few jobs there and people have flexibility, then that ultimately worked out. But you can see a lot of counties have actually grown between 2020 and 2023. This is not a shrinkage. So when people think about shrinkage and a decline, it doesn't actually tend to be the Bay. It may be some of the other areas in other parts of the state, right? Like I hear a lot more like in LA County, maybe the places like Riverside, those areas have moved more into other states. Because to be fair, some of those areas are a little bit more rural and suburb life, so moving to another place like that may make sense and may be familiar for other people. But for people in the Bay, maybe they go to Sacramento, but not that far out from the numbers, but also from what I've seen from most. Let's take a look at this, right? With a population increase of 8,475 people, Santa Clara County ranked number 1 in population growth by number. And the biggest loser in the Bay, which it made sense, San Francisco was the biggest net migration out. And there's 2 main reasons of that. One is the situation that's been going on with remote work, but also the safety and crime about San Francisco. But also, 2, if you think about it, the people that first land to San Francisco, they are usually the people that are more transient to begin with. Right? They first land because they want the lifestyle, which it has. It has a nightlife, it has lots of bars, lots of people constantly going out. But as they have aged, that current crop of generation has aged, and you may be one of them, you may be like, look, I don't really want to live in the city anymore. Okay, that may be fine. Like, you can still be within those good places in San Francisco, but you may go to San Mateo County, you may go to across the bridge to the East Bay. If you want a quiet suburb life, you go to Marin County, right? So you have a lot of options naturally from age. And as the current generation of younger people may not choose to go to San Francisco, a lot has gone to New York. You see these things happening. But still, as a net whole, the exodus is over. There is a net migration more from 2020 to 2023. So people need to be aware of that. Now, next, doesn't always mean housing is better for those that are here. Then it gets technically worse, right? If you have more people here and you aren't really building much because there isn't much room to build, like think about it. Where are the places to build in Santa Clara County today? You can build a little bit in Morgan Hill. You can build a little bit in Gilroy. That's still considered Santa Clara County. You have very, 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 very few in San Jose. That's it. So there isn't any new like homes or inventory to buy, so there's going to be existing ones. So the question people always have is, it's not just the Bay Area, the number of affordable homes is plummeting across California. Now, when you read this headline article, you can assume two things. You can assume, why is this happening? Or you like, what is, like you can just be like, oh, you can play the victim mentality. That is fair to have. Or you can try to interpret it like, what does that really mean? Is it, how do they determine what affordable homes means? That would be the only thing I would be looking at. I was like, what is the definition of affordable homes? Let's take a look, because they do tell you what affordable homes would be. So look at this, Redfin. So all the definition of affordable homes will be all over the place. So it's up to them of what they want to have as their boundaries. No different than if you want to have like, if you had an algorithm that was going to spit out some estimates or figures. It really depends on what those assumptions mean. Redfin considers a home affordable when its monthly mortgage payment would be no more than 30% of the area's median household income. Okay? 30% of the area's median household income. Assuming, what in the world? A 5% down payment? And the average 30-year mortgage rate at the time of listing? So some of these are already like, how are you buying with 5% down for the median price of a place here in the Bay Area? Like the median price of the Bay Area, if you want to blend in everything, condos, townhomes, single family, let's say you do, let's say you blend in all the counties, it's roughly about 1.2, 1.3 million. But you're not going to be putting 5% down for typically that amount. So like the whole ratio is all like strange, because quite frankly, most people are putting more than 5%. They're putting 20% down, by the way. So some of these metrics are always questionable either way. But that is one important aspect to consider. Is that number two is this whole idea of no more than 30% of the area median household income. Like, if you think about from a lender perspective, a lender is lending you up to 43% debt to income. So that is just nothing special. Every lender will lend to that. Like that's just a regular rate. Now, most people are not buying that number, to be fair. They tend to be buying between, I would say, between 30 to 40%. Usually actually a little bit less. Like most are not even counting their RSUs as part of the total comp. But because of all this, technically most can afford significantly more, and most are buying significantly more. There is a reason why homes are transacting for what they are transacting for. Right? They're transacting because there are clearly buyers that are buying these places. I mean, why else are they selling for X amount? Like while there is less inventory, that is true. At the same time, there's a reason why there's still plenty of buyers still buying the same place and willing to pay for what they're paying for. So some of these stats, like the measurement of it is not entirely fair because a lot of the incomes here are much higher. But number one. Number two, though, to be fair, the challenge for most is it depends on the industry you're at, right? If you're in tech and you're in engineering or you're in AI or you're in one of those Magnificent Sevens. The Magnificent Seven, if you look at the stock of last year, went up 90+%. If you worked at NVIDIA, you went up over 200%. Right? Certainly, the value of your assets is way higher. Right? And certainly, you can then offload that and exchange that into a hard asset like real estate. And people do that. So it is a very big range because a lot of it in the Bay does rely on stocks. And because stocks have done really well recently, don't be surprised that you're going to see this get quote unquote worse. But at the same time, it's worse because there's a lot of people that actually have a lot more money. So it's not that bad for them. And that's always going to continue to happen as we are reliant on the valuations of stocks. Quite frankly, these companies are still dominant Like even Google, right? You've seen what happened with ChatGPT, and you've seen all the press. And I mean, look at Microsoft stock; it's absolutely incredible of what has happened with that company, even at the size that it is. But even Google went up 50% in the last year, right? So as much negative press that Google had, they still went up a lot. As much negative press that you see right now with Apple, they still have gone up a lot. So important just for people to understand as a macro that it's not all these clickbait headline articles. You got to see the overall actual finances of them and the stock performance of them, and they're doing way better than the general S&P. Now, this is something that the Bay Area had avoided for a long time, which is this concept of renting, like these build to rent housing. Now, we're not talking about rent to own housing. We're talking about builders partnering with hedge funds to just build houses and not have it for sale, but just have it as a pure rental. So the Bay Area has escaped for this for a long time because the Bay Area was always its own market where there's plenty of buyers that are willing to buy places. Versus a lot of these actually sub-markets, the buyer competition isn't nearly as fierce. I mean, take a look at the stats that you may see of like Austin these days. Like, it's not that competitive. Like, there is a lot less buyers, and we're talking about days on market for months at a time now. So if they're struggling that bad, like, it's a like in the best of times, that was like this was a case of them wanting to do it. But now when it's this bad, they're not even likely going to build, or I don't know what they're going to do. Everything's going to be on a halt. Versus the Bay, now things have slowed down a bit. Now they could be like, look, instead of selling it because they're not going to sell as well, the math may still make sense to build to rent. So that's why if you take a look at this, like where were those areas? Over the past year, an explosion of build to rent, single family, home construction has spread from Phoenix. Let's move this here. Has moved from Phoenix to Dallas to Atlanta, right? So these are all the Sun Belt where there's a lot of people that have moved in those regions. So those were the areas where they didn't even build for sale. They just built it straight up for rentals. All right, look at this. While 120,000 such single-family rentals were built in 2022 across the country, 55% increase over 2019, the Bay Area has been mostly left out of the trend thanks to high land costs and zoning that encourages denser neighborhoods. I don't know about that per se. That doesn't make any sense because they could just still do these. If they really wanted to, they could have just build like apartments, which they do some, or they can just build townhomes for rent. Like people would still rent those out. But you can see like there's been some more activity. Now this is not the core Bay Area per se. So where are these areas? Look at this. They acquired 1,000 build-to-rental homes a year throughout California and is in talks to acquire other sites in Solano County, right? So this is like, you might not even know where Solano County is, but eventually they may come to the North Bay and South Bay. If they're building the South Bay, my guess they would be building, it'd probably be really far out. My guess is like Gilroy side because there's lots of land there and it may make sense to do. Because take a look at some of their numbers, right? Homes will range in size from 1,200 to 2,100 square feet. The rents will start at between $3,100 per month for a 2-bedroom, going as high as $4,000 per month for a 4-bedroom. The community will have standard things like clubhouse, dog parks, etc., etc. The units, though, will be much more expensive than the average rental unit in Solano, which goes for only $2,200 a month. So these are really nice luxury places. Take a look at this. The median single-family home in the county sells for $607,000. So what does that mean? So if they were to sell this place, so this place as they build for this kind of rent ratios, I would probably say they're worth 750 to 800. So that's kind of the interesting thing, right? Like they feel like it makes sense for them to make the bet to build it for these luxury rentals. And the question is, will they have the demand for people that do want these single-family places that will be brand new, and it'll be a nice community for sure, but will they be willing to go that far out, or can they just try to buy a place for these for roughly a similar amount? Because they look at that, they did the math. The median single-family home in the county sells for $607, And with rates, current rates, and 5% down, that's a monthly payment of $4,000, not including tax or insurance though. So if you include tax and insurance, it probably goes to like $5,000 or something like that. But if you paid if you're about to pay that amount, it's not too bad to consider just buying and owning a place if you have the means and the ability to do so. So it'll be interesting to see, but this movement has not occurred in the Bay in a long time. And even this right now, what's happening, this is still pretty far out. It's like, I don't know how many people, you raise your hand if, leave in the comments below if you consider these build to rental places. I mean, they're building 1,000, but it is really, really far out. So it's out in Solano County. So you can take a look at this. Meanwhile, so his group is starting construction on several built-to-rental projects in Hollister. Because with what I said, lots of room in Hollister. Like if you go all to Hollister, you go between like Tracy to like Stockton area. There's still lots of room and lots of land. So there's a lot of areas for opportunities for these developers, along with hedge funds. If they wanted to make a bet, let them make the bet. It's not a bad thing. Like more units is not a bad thing, especially where there's areas that there's nothing there anyways. So those are some things just to keep an eye out for how they progress. Let's take a look at this. Touring the San Francisco Bay's Red Rock Island, now up for sale. The whole island in San Francisco Bay could be yours for $25 million. So where in the world is Red Rock Island? Let's take a look, and so let's have you see where this is. Most people have probably driven by it, but did not really realize that. So when you go across the Richmond Bridge, there is a nice little island here west of the bridge. Now, what is actually there right now? Right now, it's kind of dilapidated. Like it had like they did some like camping on it. Like there's some campgrounds on it. Not a whole lot. It's kind of rocky, but I guess that again, someone could build like some luxury home on it and have a private. You'll definitely have a private island. Location is pretty good. I mean, if people are spending what they're spending on Treasure Island, and in that region, and you're basically buying a piece of land, like even at Treasure Island right now, you have the ability to buy a piece of land with views though at about $7-8 million today. Now it's not your own island, but it's a piece of land like on the cliff. So today you can do that if you wanted to, and then you would build against that. Now here, if you want your own island, maybe they'll sell it. I'm not sure. If anyone wants to buy this, let's chat. But that's something always fascinating to see, because this is a certainly a new development and a new project that is something you're not going to really see. And then last but not least, I'm going to cover some of this. Electric vehicle miles traveled per 1,000 residents. When you're in the Bay Area, or you're like in Southern California, we drive a good amount. And because of the state of California has a lot of incentives for EVs, there is a lot more electric vehicles here, and hence why Tesla is so big here, and why they continue to sell a lot of units. Now, a lot of it is combination of subsidies. A lot of it is combination of it's a very good car. A lot of combination that people drive a decent amount. But to be fair, it's also a combination that supercharging and charging in general here is very, very easy. Like there is no shortage of places to charge, even if you have to drive a lot to even Sacramento, it's still very, very simple. Like that's the reality of here and in SoCal and these kind of major hubs. And take a look at this as a general chart though. Electric vehicle mile traveled per 1,000 residents. It's really only California, Seattle has a good amount, some in Florida that are these huge hubs, right? And then, but you can look at the rest of the country isn't as big. So while Tesla had expanded and built their additional plant in Austin, and that's mainly from a distribution perspective, at the end of the day, most of their market is still in the Bay, is still in like the West Coast. And so because of that, their Fremont factory has to keep booming, going at full production, which it is. to continue to produce for the volume that people need. But just some interesting things, because on one end we may take it for granted how convenient it is here and how popular it is here, and that's why you see, quite frankly, just so many Teslas all around, and that's a good thing. I mean, it's a really, really nice car. I dropped off my Tesla at the shop today, got a loaner, and it was pretty fast and simple, so it was an easy thing to do. But just some kind of some interesting notice that I wanted to share about the EV side of it. But at the same time, it's definitely not happening all across the country, equally distributed at all. That's the key about that. Well, let's take a look if there's any questions for this week. Otherwise, feel free to leave it in the comments below. And if you're not watching this live, we will go over it next week. But the idea is every week, either on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday evening at around 7 o'clock. Mostly it'll be Thursday nights. I'm going to be doing this because I used to do this a lot. I used to kind of go over the market data. But if you take a look on my Monday's episode, you'll be able to see the market data. So you don't need to ask about that per se. I'm happy to talk about that at any time. But you'll see that monthly, because looking every week doesn't make much sense, and it doesn't change that drastically. But the news of each week and the different things that could impact the Bay Area market, or the things that I find interesting, I want to curate that for you guys so that you guys don't miss out on these things. And if you have any specific questions, I can use this also as a live Q&A. So that's something I want to do. And this is also a new thing that we're starting up again. So I think that's it for now. If you have any questions, send me a DM. I'm gonna check something. Impact the Bay Area market, or the things that. Yes, Michael, thank you for tuning in. Seven Thunder, thank you guys for tuning in as usual. But yes, in the future, we're going to keep this going. I've seen others do this quite well, so I'm certainly very interested to keep this going as a recurring theme. And as different things progress, it's going to be covered on this from a weekly basis. And of course, if you're thinking about buying, selling, or investing here in the Bay Area, especially in 2024, my contact details are below. And I would love to set up a time to go over some options together and be your trusted real estate resource. I'll see you at the next one. Bye now.